Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Lightning Snow back today with another video, and obviously you can see it's a first battle video, and I'm actually pretty excited to do this one. It's one that someone had requested a little while ago, actually, and I recently did a poll on my Instagram. Be sure to go check that out and follow, by the way. And I had done 3 options. One was ranking every Naruto arc in Part 1. The other one was Vegeta versus Piccolo during the Cell Saga, and it was also the third option, Kisame versus Jiraiya, and needless to say, Jiraiya and Kisame won the fight. So that brings us to today's video. Now, on the subject of the fight in particular, this one's going to be kind of tricky because there's a lot that goes into this fight, and you can honestly split this fight into 2 separate rounds, which is what I'm going to do pretty much. I'm gonna try to keep this fight, as condensed as possible, but I will do it thoroughly as I always do. Now, the only person I feel like I'm going to do anything with as far as changing each round is with Jiraiya, and I only say that because Jiraiya has just, his base form and Sage Mode. And technically you could make the same case with Kisame, because I could do a form in each round with or without Samehada, but I don't know if that's really fair, because he's always had Samehada. He's only had like one fight technically without Samehada, and I mean, that fight, he kind of got stomped. But in any case, so Kisame will have Samehada the entire time, but I'll do 2 separate rounds with Jiraiya base and with Sage Mode. Now, something really quick that I have to make apparent, I might get some slack for this, but there's this really widespread idea that because of Part 1's retcon, people think that Kisame is nowhere near Jiraiya's league, and based off the feats we see in Shippuden, I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree. Well, I do think that Jiraiya would be a total match for Kisame and could, without a doubt, go toe-to-toe. The whole he's in a different league statement that he made in Part 1 is definitely not true. Something else that's a little bit tricky to do about this fight is that because power scaling Naruto characters is a little bit difficult than power scaling characters in Dragon Ball Z, for instance, is that, like, I mean, for just as example, 7th Gate Guy was able to pretty much almost one-shot Kisame, and I mean, if Kisame was really terrified that Jiraiya was, strong enough to kill him, that would mean at least Sage Mode Jiraiya is somewhere on par with 6, maybe even 7th Gate Guy. That's probably wanking Jiraiya's Sage Mode in particular, because I mean, I'm going to say that Naruto's Sage Mode is probably on par with 6th or 7th Gate Guy, and I mean, Jiraiya isn't as strong as Sage Mode Naruto, so their comparisons are there. They're very comparable, I feel like. So this is what makes the fight, worth doing at the very least. But on the other hand, you also have Kisame over here that almost beat B, which is really impressive, especially when you consider that base Jiraiya almost got one-shotted by 4-tailed cloak Naruto. So, like I said, power scaling is a little bit tricky, and you could take a whole lot of things into that like Jiraiya either was caught off guard or didn't want to injure Naruto too much, whether he was in the 4-tails or not. But like that's kind of up in the air too, because Orochimaru kind of got slapped by 4-tails Naruto also. So I don't know. Like I said, power scaling is kind of hard to do, especially in a fight like this where feats and statements are thrown left and right and kind of make you doubt like every other thing in the fight. So I'm gonna try to do my best, but yeah, so first round, base versus Kisame. Just based on feats, there's really not a whole lot that Jiraiya could really do, especially if Kisame is presumably going all out against Jiraiya, because I mean, with Samehada, like without being fused with Samehada, Kisame is already like a beast, like literally a beast. So, and he boasts a large supply of chakra. I can't really say how much for certain, but if I had to take a wild guess, I'd say it's either on par or greater than Jiraiya's, and I'm willing to say that in base it's probably greater. I mean, he's called the tailless beast. He's compared to the tail beast, like, in general, so that pretty much says it all. And I'm not trying to downplay Jiraya's chakra even in base, but still, like, Kisame's got plenty of it to draw from. So as far as how the fight would go in base Jiraiya versus Kisame, I don't know. I think that Jiraiya would definitely have a good fight with him. I definitely think Jiraiya could go toe to toe with him for sure. Because on the other hand, you know, Jiraiya does have a plenty of fire style jutsu that would, you know, no doubt be able to cancel like a lot of Kisame's jutsu. Maybe not the giant like water shark bomb, because that could absorb chakra. So I don't know, like, because Jiraiya boasts some pretty large scale jutsu, specifically fire style jutsu from what we've seen, but I'm not entirely sure how the water shark bomb would really absorb the fire style technique, especially if it's like, if he's combining it with like in one of his toad summons. And that's another thing too, Jiraiya has summons even in base that he can do. I only would want to say he could probably just do Gamabunta just for the sake of fairness, because we've only seen him summon Gamabunta in base, like only one toad in base. So I'm not going to give him the 3 that he can do when he's in Sage mode. Now that's not to say that I don't think he can. It's just the only fight that I've really seen him in base form was against Orochimaru, and that was when he was like drugged, so his chakra wasn't all that great. I mean, maybe he could do like a couple of the medium-sized toads, like how big Gamakichi was like halfway through Shippuden. So like I can give him those, like, you know, Gamabunta plus like 2 medium-sized toads in base. And so, like, I mean, not gonna lie, Kisame can't really do anything, or can't really do too much against those, except for fuse with Samehada and some of the Giant Lake. And you know, being that, you know, Gamabunta is a toad and the other 2 toads are toads, I mean, they should be able to move, freely underwater. Jiraiya maybe not so much, but I mean, he is a toad sage, so I mean, I'm not saying that's indicative of him being able to fight underwater. I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know. We've never really seen Jiraiya fight underwater, so we can't really say for sure. Except if you want to count that little brief skirmish he had with the 3 paths of pain underwater, but that's really about it. I think if I'm gonna put this on a round, like a closure on this round, I think that Jiraiya would probably win, just because, I mean, if Kisame wins, I think it's really only due to him outlasting Jiraiya in terms of chakra, because I mean, yeah, like Kisame's been shown to like regenerate pretty fast. Like whenever B hit him with the lariat, like Kisame was able to regenerate pretty quickly. But I mean, base Jiraiya is pretty strong, and not only that, he has 2 to 3 summons max that are relatively big or really big to worry about. And as strong as like Kisame is, all 3 of them plus Jiraiya himself, it's going to be a little bit too hard for Kisame to handle. But then at the same time, Kisame was able to hold off all of Team Guy with a 30% clone, and clones of those 30% clones were handling Neji, Lee, and Tenten, and one of them is not really that impressive, but still, to hold off Lee and Neji are pretty impressive, and the 30% to hold off 6th gate guy is also pretty impressive. It's just it's really hard for me to make a clear decision on this round in particular. But on the other hand, what I will say is that if Kisame does fuse with Samehada, I do think that Kisame will take the win, because while Jiraiya is probably pretty good at fighting underwater and his toads are probably even better, Kisame is pretty much bred to fight underwater. And not only that, it's probably his specialty, and his strength is, increased even more on top of his crazy regen. So, if Kisame summons a giant lake and the toads aren't able to really get Jiraiya out, which, I mean, again, like, Jiraiya all has to do, Jiraiya just has to like hold on to his toads and they can just swim. I don't know how fast. I'm going to assume that Kisame is pretty faster. I don't know. Its speed feats are kind of weird to guess when you're fighting underwater, but I'm gonna give this round to Kisame just because, you know, if he's going all out and decides to summon the giant lake and use Samehada, it's probably done because, I mean, Kisame could just stay underwater, and you know, Jiraiya's gonna have to go underwater to fight him if he wants to beat him. And I'm gonna assume that the giant, like, while he's underwater and fuses Samehada, Kisame has the edge in terms of strength and chakra and, you know, agility and mobility. So, and I'm pretty sure fire style jutsu won't really work too well underwater either. So, you know, unless Jiraiya is able to take Kisame out before then, which again, it's possible, but I'll give that one a 7 or 8 out of 10. Like, Jiraiya would probably win 7 or 8 out of 10 times if it's on land. But if, you know, again, if he summons a giant lake, confuses with Samehada, then I don't really see a way that base Jiraiya would win. So, base Jiraiya on land, 8 out of 10, but underwater, refuses Samehada, I'd say Jiraiya would maybe win 6 out of 10 at best. So, moving on to round 2. Now, I do think that this is a very close fight, and I'm gonna say right off the bat that I think Jiraiya has the edge in this round. Just for clarity, the round is Sage Mode Jiraiya versus Kisame, both with Samehada or without, doesn't really matter. And I say that because, and I didn't want to hinder Jiraiya's abilities in base, because I can only go off the feats I've seen in Sage Mode. Like, him summoning all 3 of those giant toads plus Mom Pa was really when he was in Sage Mode. And so I can only really, you know, the feats that we saw in Sage Mode, I can only really say in this fight, and I couldn't use them in base because I haven't seen him use any of those in base. So, just for clarity, but I do think base Jiraiya would win this. While most of his fire style jutsu probably still won't work underwater, and I'm going with the worst case scenario, because I have no doubt that, you know, if they fought on land, Jiraiya would have the edge, because base Jiraiya is already strong enough in taijutsu and ninjutsu, but to amplify that even just a little bit with his Sage Mode, incomplete or not, it's still ridiculous. I mean, he almost pretty much took out the 3 paths of pain while going into the fight blindsided, by the way. And even though he lost in the end, he still did far better than Kisame probably would have gone in the fight. Well, maybe, I don't know. That's a topic for another day. But I do think that Jiraiya would beat out Kisame on land, because his speed feats are pretty incredible in Sage Mode as well. And I don't think Kisame really could keep up with Jiraiya all that much. I'm not saying he's completely outclassed Kisame, but and then his strength is amplified, not to mention his sensory abilities and his reaction time is also amplified. So Sage Jiraiya, it would be a handful, I feel like, for Kisame to handle. I mean, heck, Jiraiya was able to speed blitz a path of pain and hit another one with the giant Rasengan before his sandal could hit the ground. So, and I'm not saying that, like, Kisame couldn't take that. I mean, obviously he can regenerate, so I'm not saying that Kisame wouldn't be able to tank it. I'm just saying, like, Jiraiya is almost comparable to Sage Mode Naruto in terms of strength. Obviously he's not as strong, but, and then I would say that Sage Mode Naruto is on par with 6th or maybe even 7th gate guy. That may be wanking it too much, but y'all can decide that if y'all want. That's what I'm going to go with. So, and obviously Kisame was destroyed by a 7th gate guy. So, I think the biggest factor though, like, I think that if Kisame goes all out and decides to summon the giant lake, that would actually help Jiraiya, because now in Sage Mode he's able to summon at least 2 more giant toads on top of the 1 giant other toad and 2 medium-sized toads that would all probably fight pretty well underwater. And with Jiraiya's added, strength and agility and sensory, it probably wouldn't be too hard to fight underwater in Sage mode. And he also has Ma and Pa. And I think the genjutsu that they put the Paths of Pain on can also work underwater. So that might actually be more detrimental to Kisame than fighting on land would. So, and if Kisame gets caught in the genjutsu, it's pretty much game over, because then Jiraiya can just hit Kisame with a giant Rasengan, and that's, it may not end the fight immediately, but you still have all those other summons pounding your tail. So I'm giving Jiraiya the win. I don't want to sound like, too quick about this round, but I'm pretty confident that Jiraiya in Sage mode win. And if he doesn't, it's really just that Kisame outlasts him in chakra. That's really the only way I see Kisame really winning against Jiraiya. So Sage mode Jiraiya, I'd say would win 9 out of 10 times against Kisame. Whether it's on land, I'd say it's definitely 9 or 10 out of 10. But Kisame might still have a better time and easier time fighting Jiraiya underwater. But I still think that with Ma and Pa and the rest of the summons, the Giant Lake and Samihara fused won't really do too much. So that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I'm sorry if it was too short. I'm trying to make these verse battle videos as short as I possibly can, because I don't want to do 50 minutes all the time. But another thing that I want to talk about, though, is that I love doing versus battle videos. I really, really do. And I hope you guys keep suggesting them to me. Come up with new ideas. Doesn't matter for what. But I also want to branch off and do other videos, too. So if it's like top 10 characters, top 10 shows, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, just shoot me with ideas, because I really want to see what I can do aside from Naruto versus battle videos. And it don't have to be exclusively Naruto. It could be any anime or live action show, game, etc., whatever. But please try to support me in those other videos too, because I want to start making other videos besides Naruto versus battle videos. But like I said, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. And until then, Lightning Snow out.